Dawn breaks over the Muromachi market and the air already chokes with the stench of fish guts sharp enough to sting your eyes. Fishmongers, their hands slick with scales, bellow over each other, their cries a jagged chorus that drowns out the morning's quiet. Fresh carp. Straight from the river one shouts, though the greying pile on his stall suggests otherwise. You weave through the crowd, your sandals squelching in mud mixed with discarded entrails, each step a gamble against slipping into the filth. A woman haggles fiercely, her voice cutting like a blade, while a nearby vendor smirks, knowing the fish she's buying is half rotten. This is no quaint market. It's a battlefield of commerce, where every deal feels like a scam waiting to happen. Pickpockets slink in the shadows, their eyes glinting with hunger, and you clutch your coin purse tighter, feeling the crowd's pulse like a predator's breath. Imagine a medieval Black Friday, but with knives and no refunds. The market's chaos is its heartbeat pumping life and danger in equal measure. A rat scurries past, gnawing a fish head, and you realise here survival means keeping one hand on your money and the other on your wits. Like Cher, tell us your creepiest market tale, because this place would eat you alive. Tucked in a market corner under a tattered awning, a fortune teller hunches over a pile of fish bones, her fingers tracing their cracks like a map to your doom. The crowd parts around her, half curious, half afraid, as she mutters omens in a voice like rustling leaves. 3 breaks here, she croaks. Holding up a carp's spine means betrayal by dusk. You pause, drawn by the eerie weight of her words, though your mind screams, it's nonsense, medieval psychic hotline, anyone. Yet the bone's pale glint in the torchlight feels alive, whispering secrets you'd rather not hear. A merchant nearby scoffs, but his hand twitches toward a protective charm at his belt. In the Muromachi market, superstition is currency, and this woman's stall is a shrine to the uncanny. A child gawks as she scatters more bones, their clatter sharp against the market's din, and you swear the air grows colder. Locals whisper her predictions come true. Lovers, part thieves, a court, storms, rage. Is it skill or something darker? The market thrives on such mysteries where every deal and divination feels like a roll of cursed dice. Step closer, and you might hear your fate or wish you hadn't. Share your weirdest superstition in the comments. This market's got plenty. The Muromachi market hums with danger, and you feel it in the brush of a stranger's sleeve too close too quick. Pickpockets move like shadows, their fingers dancing over purses with the grace of a swordmaster. One, a boy no older than 12, slips through the crowd, his eyes sharp as a hawk's, snatching a merchant's coin pouch before vanishing into the chaos. You check your own belt heart pounding, because here trust is a luxury you can't afford. The market's a thief's playground, where every stall hides a predator, and every deal distracts you from the hand in your pocket. Imagine a medieval heist movie, but everyone's a suspect, and the prize is your lunch money. A woman shrieks, her basket of rice now lighter by a silver coin, and the crowd barely blinks. Loss is just another market tax. Some thieves are bold, flashing knives to silence protests. Others are ghosts gone before you feel the weight of their take. The air crackles with tension, each glance a potential betrayal. You sidestep a pile of fish guts only to catch a glint of steel in a cloaked figure's hand. Survival here means eyes in the back of your head. Drop your creepiest thief story in the comments. This market's got no honour among its rogues. Under a sagging stall, a vendor with a crooked grin hawks charms wrapped in faded cloth, each one promising luck or ruin if you believe the whispers. This one wards off demons, he rasps, dangling a bone-carved trinket that catches the torchlight like a warning. You hesitate, drawn to the eerie hum of the charm, though locals swear these baubles bring curses if misused sickness, betrayal, or worse. In the Muromachi market, superstition sells faster than fish, and this vendor's grin suggests he knows more than he tells. Picture a medieval Etsy gone wrong where every purchase feels like a deal with the devil. A buyer snatches a charm only to fumble it into the mud, and the crowd gasps as if he's doomed himself. The vendor doesn't blink, just offers another, his voice low. Careful friend, this one bites. Some say these charms whisper at night, their words slithering into dreams. You step back, the air thick with incense and unease, as a rat gnaws at a discarded charm in the dirt. Faith or folly? The market doesn't care, it thrives on your fear. Share your wildest cursed object tale below. This stall's got plenty to spare. The Muromachi market pulses with forbidden glances, and you catch a young woman's eyes flicker toward a man across the crowd, their secret sharper than any blade. Lovers meet here in the chaos where fishmongers' shouts and jostling elbows hide stolen moments, brief, electric, dangerous. A misstep could spark gossip or worse, a family's wrath, yet they risk it, their hands brushing as they pass a stall piled with wilted greens. Picture a medieval Tinder date, but one wrong move means a duel or disgrace. You feel the tension, the air thick with sweat, and possibility as a merchant nearby haggles loudly oblivious to the drama. Her scarf slips, revealing a smile meant only for him, and your heart races, will someone notice? The market's a cruel stage where love is a high-stakes game played amid thieves and spies. A jealous rival's shadow lingers nearby, his hand on a dagger, and you realise romance here is as deadly as any theft. The crowd surges, pressing you closer to the lovers, their whispered words lost in the din. One wrong look, and the market's chaos could swallow them whole. Share your wildest forbidden love story in the comments. This market's seen plenty. A merchant's hand rests on the hilt of a knife, his eyes scanning the Muromachi market for the thief who swiped his silk last week. His stall draped in vibrant cloth is a fortress, every bolt of fabric guarded like gold, every customer a potential crook. You sidestep his glare, feeling the weight of his suspicion, as he spits into the mud and mutters about market rats. This is no friendly shopkeep, it's medieval mall security with a body count. A shout erupts nearby, a vendor's caught a pickpocket and blood stains the cobblestones before the crowd can blink. The merchant's blade flashes not to kill, but to warn its edge, catching the sun like a promise. In these markets, trust is a myth, and violence is currency. You smell iron and fish the air heavy with threat as another trader bandages a slashed arm cursing. The market thrives on this edge where every deal teeters between profit and pain. A child ducks under the stall grabbing a scrap, and the merchant's roar shakes the air. Survival here means a sharp eye and a sharper weapon. Drop your wildest market brawl tale below, this place is a powder keg. The Muromachi market crackles with the peddlers' hustle, their voices a relentless tide over the stench of fish and mud. A wiry man with a crooked nose waves bolts of dyed cloth shouting, silk finer than a lord's dreams, while his partner hawks clay pots, each guaranteed to hold your rice or your secrets. You dodge their outstretched hands, knowing half these goods are stolen or shoddy, but the crowd eats it up, bartering coins for promises. It's a medieval infomercial, all flash, and no substance, where every deal smells like a con. A woman snatches a pot only to find it cracked, and the peddler's already moved on his grin, sharp as a blade. The air hums with their cries, cloth pots, even blessed trinkets to ward off bad luck, though you'd need one to survive this market's scams. A cart rattles past spilling turnips, and the peddlers seize the chaos, shouting louder to drown out the competition. You feel the market's pulse a frantic rhythm of greed and guile, where dreams are sold cheap and regret comes free. One wrong buy, and you're out a day's wages. Share your wildest market scam story in the comments. This place thrives on fools and fast talkers. Sake fumes hang heavy in the Muromachi market as a drunkard's slurred curse sparks a brawl, fists flying faster than the fishmonger's insults. Two men, red-faced and swaying, crash into a stall, splintering wood and scattering radishes as the crowd cheers like it's a festival. You leap back, heart racing, as a stray elbow grazes your side, the air thick with sweat and chaos. Picture a medieval bar fight, but with an audience betting on blood. A vendor screams, clutching her broken baskets, while another tosses a bucket of fish guts to break up the melee. Only it makes the ground slicker, and a third man slips cursing. Knives glint, but stay sheathed for now. The market's volatile, but death's a bad deal for business. The drunkards grapple when spitting blood, their rage as raw as the market's stench. You smell iron and alcohol, the ground gritty underfoot as the crowd's laughter turns sharp hungry. Fights like this are the market's dark pulse, proof it thrives on excess. One wrong step, and you're in the fray. Drop your wildest brawl tale, below this market's a tinderbox waiting for a spark. In the Muromachi market's grimy alleys, a beggar crouches, his voice a rasping lure, weaving tales of cursed stalls and vanished merchants to coax coins from passers-by. Stay clear of the east corner, he whispers, eyes glinting, or the market's ghost'll claim your soul by moonrise. You pause, half sceptical, half chilled, as his words paint a market alive with malice, where careless buyers vanish into the night. It's medieval urban legend spun to survive, and the crowd tosses coppers hooked by his eerie yarn. His rags reek of mud and fish blending with the market's stench, and you wonder if he's mad or cunning or both. Some say his stories hold truth. A vendor's stall burned after ignoring his warning, its ashes cold by dawn. The market thrives on such whispers where fear is as tradable as silk. You step over a puddle, its surface rippling like his tales, and feel the crowd's gaze shift wary. A child tugs her mother away spooked, and the beggar's laugh cracks the air. Truth or trick, his stories cling like damp rot. Share your creepiest street tale in the comments. This market's beggars know more than they tell. As dusk swallows the Muromachi market, the shouts of peddlers fade, leaving an eerie quiet that presses against your skin like damp silk. Stalls stand empty, their awnings sagging, and the cobblestones gleam with fish slime under a sickle moon. You linger alone now, the day's chaos a ghost in the shadows, each step echoing where hours ago thieves and lovers danced. Imagine a medieval carnival after the lights go out, where silence feels like a held breath. A stray dog gnaws a discarded bone, its crunch unnervingly loud, and you swear the air hums with something unspoken, folk tales of spirits haunting these alleys, born of spilled blood and broken deals. The market's pulse slows, but its dangers don't sleep. A faint clink of metal hints at a thief still prowling. You smell stale sack and rot, the ground gritty with trampled herbs, and the quiet grows heavier as if the market itself watches. One wrong turn and the darkness might claim you. The day's frenzy feels distant, yet its echoes linger in the chill. Share your eeriest nighttime story below. This market's quiet hides its own secrets. Under the Muromachi market's flickering torchlight, a smuggler's stall lurks in a shadowed alley, its crates draped in burlap to hide forbidden goods, stolen silks, untaxed sake blades banned by the shogun. The smuggler, a wiry man with eyes like a cornered fox, whispers, deals to a cloaked buyer, his voice barely rising above the night's hum. You pause, heart thudding, as the air grows thick with risk. One wrong word and samurai could swarm their swords swift as justice. Picture a medieval dark web where every click's a gamble with your life. A crate creaks open, revealing glinting steel, and you smell oil and iron sharp against the market's fishy rot. The buyer hesitates, sensing a trap, and the smuggler's grin shows too many teeth. In this market, secrets are currency, but betrayal pays better. A rat skitters past, and you flinch, half expecting a blade at your throat. The deal's done in a flash, coins for contraband, and both men vanish, leaving only whispers. Step too close, and you're part of their game. Share your shadiest deal story in the comments. This market's shadows hide more than goods. A small shrine squats in the Muromachi market's heart, its weathered wood draped in prayer strips that flutter like ghosts in the evening breeze. Worshippers kneel, offering rice to appease spirits, while charlatans nearby hawk, blessed charms their smiles as false as their wares. You feel the shrines pull its incense, choking the air with cedar and mystery, yet the crowd's piety feels fragile, edged with fear of unseen curses. It's a medieval roadside chapel, but the devil's in the details and the dealers. A woman whispers of a merchant who ignored the shrine and lost his stall, to fire her eyes darting as if the gods listen. The market's din fades here, replaced by a hum that prickles your skin, and you notice the prayer strip's ink faded yet oddly fresh like blood. A monk chants his voice low, but a peddler's laugh cuts through, selling salvation for a coin. Faith and fraud blur in this shadow where every offering feels like a bribe. You step back the ground, soft with spilled offerings, and wonder what watches from the shrine. Share your creepiest shrine tale below. This market's gods don't play fair. The Muromachi market's cobblestones glisten with filth, and rats swarm the shadows, their teeth gnashing at discarded fish heads and rotting scraps. You freeze as a pack scurries past, their claws scraping like tiny knives, each one bold enough to dart between your feet. The air chokes with the stench of decay, a sour tang that clings to your throat, and you realise this is no mere nuisance. Rats rule the market's underbelly, feasting where merchants tread. Picture a medieval landfill alive with hunger and rot, where sanitation's a cruel joke. A vendor kicks at a rat, cursing as it snatches a carp's tail, but the swarm doesn't flinch, their eyes glinting in the torchlight. Some whisper the rats carry curses, spreading plague with every bite, and you feel their gaze unyielding as if they know your fear. The market's chaos feeds them its waste, their banquet, and you step carefully, the ground slick with their leavings. A child shrieks, pointing at a rat dragging a bone, and the crowd laughs nervously. Survival here means watching your step or joining the feast. Share your grossest pest tale in the comments this market's rats don't share. In a cramped Muromachi market alley, gamblers huddle around a flickering lantern, tossing dice onto a worn mat, their bets as reckless as their grins. Coins, rice, even a dagger change hands, and you feel the air crackle with desperation, each roll a dance with ruin. A man with scarred knuckles curses as he loses a day's wages, his glare promising trouble while another laughs drunk on sake and luck. It's Vegas with knives, where every game's a gamble on your life, not just your purse. You edge closer, the ground gritty with spilled ash, and catch a whiff of sweat and cheap wine, the market's din a distant roar. A loser grabs for the dice and a blade flashes blood's drawn before the crowd blinks. The gamblers play on unfazed, their stakes climbing higher, some betting charms rumoured to curse the winner. Tension coils like a snake and you wonder who'll snap first. The market thrives on this madness where fortune's a fickle god. One wrong bet and you're out more than money. Drop your wildest gambling story below, this corner's a house of fools. A stray spark from a peddler's lantern ignites a pile of straw in the Muromachi market and panic erupts as flames lick the edges of a cloth stall. You stumble back, the crowd surging like a trapped beast, their shouts drowning out the crackle of fire. The air turns acrid smoke, stinging your eyes, and you taste ash as vendors scramble tossing buckets of murky water that only sizzle uselessly. Picture a medieval flash mob, but everyone's running from death instead of dancing. A woman clutches her wares, screaming as embers catch her basket, while a thief uses the chaos to snatch a purse. The market's tinderbox nature bares its teeth, wooden stalls dry as bones stand ready to burn. A man's sleeve catches fire, his curse is sharp as he douses it in mud, and you feel the heat creeping closer, the ground slick with spilled sack and fish slime. The flames falter, barely contained, but the fear lingers, a reminder of how fast this market could become a pyre. One wrong gust and it's all ash. Share your wildest fire scare in the comments, this market's always one spark from hell. At a rickety stall in the Muromachi market, a so-called healer peddles cures that smell worse than the fish guts underfoot, muddy pastes and bitter herbs promise to banish fever or bad luck. Swallow this, live forever, he barks, waving a jar of what looks like swamp sludge, his grin as trustworthy as a thief's. You gag at the stench, watching a desperate buyer choke down a spoonful, his face twisting like he's tasted death itself. It's a medieval snake oil pitch where hope's the bait and regret's the hook. The healer's eyes glint as he pockets coins, spinning tales of miracles, while a nearby child coughs untouched by his cures. The market swallows his lies, its din hiding the groans of the scammed. You step over a puddle of spilled tonic, its reek blending with the market's rot, and hear whispers of buyers struck ill after trusting him. A woman storms back, cursing his name, but he's already charming the next fool. Survival here means doubting every promise. Drop your shadiest scam story below, this market's healers sell poison as salvation. In a forgotten corner of the Muromachi market, a woman with weathered hands runs a stall of wilted herbs and chipped pots, her presence barely tolerated by the bustling crowd. She's an outcast, maybe a widow, maybe foreign, her eyes defiant as merchants sneer and shove past, claiming her spot's bad luck. You pause, struck by her quiet grit as she barters with a rare buyer, her voice steady despite the insults hissed nearby. This is medieval retail with a side of exile where survival's a daily fight against scorn. Her goods are meagre, yet each sale keeps her alive, a small rebellion against the market's cruel hierarchy. A child tosses a stone at her stall, and she doesn't flinch, just sweeps it away with a calloused hand. The air smells of her herbs bitter, earthy, mingling with the market's fishy rot, and you feel the weight of her struggle invisible to the crowd's clamour. Some whisper her herbs heal better than the healer's scams, but few dare buy. Step too close and you share her stigma. Share your tale of an underdog's fight in the comments, this market chews up the weak, but she's still standing. The Muromachi market explodes into a festival, its alleys choked with masked dancers and stalls, hawking strange wares, charms shaped like demons, rice cakes dusted with suspicious powder. You're swept into the crowd, their cheers a wild pulse as drummers pound rhythms that shake the cobblestones. The air's thick with sake and sweat, and you dodge a performer spitting fire, his breath close enough to singe your sleeve. Picture a medieval Coachella, but with swords and no exit plan. A vendor thrusts a lucky trinket at you, his grin too wide, while another sells fish skewered on sticks, their glaze hiding yesterday's rot. The frenzy's intoxicating, but danger hums beneath pickpockets thrive, and a wrong step could spark a brawl. A masked figure brushes past their eyes hidden, and you clutch your purse heart racing. The market's alive, its chaos cranked to a fever pitch where every laugh feels like a dare. A scream cuts through someone's lost more than coins, and the crowd roars on, unbothered. Join the madness or get trampled. Drop your wildest festival story below this market's a riot with a body count. In the Muromachi market's darkest alleys, whispers tell of a spectral vendor, his stall appearing at midnight with wares that vanish by dawn. You linger past curfew, the air cold and heavy with fish rot, as locals swear they've seen him, a gaunt figure in tattered robes, offering trinkets that hum with unnatural weight. His eyes, they say, burn like coals, and buyers wake screaming their coins gone. Picture a medieval ghost story, but the haunt's running a pop-up shop in Hell's Flea Market. You hear a creak, a stall materialising in the fog, its cloth flapping, though no wind stirs. The ground's slick with slime, and you smell something sour, not quite fish, as a shadow shifts behind the counter. No one approaches yet. The crowd's murmurs grow tales of a merchant who crossed a shrine and paid with his soul. The market feeds on such legends, its pulse quickening in the dark. You step back, heart pounding, as the stall's outline fades, leaving only mist. Is it real, or just the market's cruel jest? Share your spookiest ghost tale in the comments. This market's shadows hold grudges. The Muromachi market breathes its chaos, a living thing, filthy, fierce and unyielding, a microcosm of humanity's hunger for survival. You stand amid the fading din stalls now quiet, and see it all, the fishmonger's bloodied hands, the thief's fleeting grin, the lover's stolen glance, all pulsing through this muddy heart. It's no fairy tale bazaar. It's a beast that chews up the careless and spits out their bones, yet you can't look away. Imagine a medieval circus where every actor dare to live another day. The air's thick with the day's ghosts, sake smoke and whispered curses, and the cobblestones bear scars of brawls and bargains. This market's a mirror reflecting greed, defiance and fleeting joy in every shouted deal. A rat darts past claiming its share, and you feel the market's rhythm, relentless binding thief to merchant, beggar to buyer. It's alive and you're caught in its veins. Step away and it still clings a gritty echo of humanity's raw edge. Share what makes your heart race in the comments. This market's beat won't let you go. You step into the Ashikaga School's training yard, where boys as young as 10 grip live blades, their small hands trembling under the weight of steel. The air rings with the clash of swords, each strike a lesson in blood cut or be cut, no room for hesitation. A boy's arm drips red from a misstep, his face pale but defiant as the master barks. Again. This isn't a playground. It's a medieval forge hammering kids into killers. The ground's packed dirt scuffed with sweat and splattered crimson, and you smell iron and fear sharp as the blades flashing in the dawn. These samurai in training, barely taller than their swords, move with grim focus, their childhoods carved away with every swing. Picture a boot camp where the drills can end in a funeral. A younger boy stumbles, his blade clattering, and the master's glare promises worse than shame. The school's walls loom stone cold, trapping them in this brutal dance. One slip and you're scarred for life or worse. Share your wildest training story in the comments. This school's no place for the weak. Rain lashes the Ashikaga School's courtyard, and a boy stands shivering, head bowed, as icy water soaks his thin robe, punishment for sneaking off to fish instead of training. The master's voice cuts through the downpour. Stand till you learn or drown in your folly. You watch the chill seeping into your bones as the boy's teeth chatter, his defiance crumbling under the relentless cold. This is medieval detention Arctic style, where discipline bites harder than any blade. The ground's a muddy slick pooling around his bare feet, and you smell wet earth and sodden cloth, the air heavy with the weight of authority. Other students peer from the barracks, their faces a mix of pity and relief. It's not them out there. The rain's a cruel teacher, etching lessons in endurance, and you wonder if he'll break or harden. A gust howls, and he sways, eyes fixed on the mud. The school thrives on such trials, forging warriors from pain. One shiver too many and he's done. Drop your harshest punishment tale in the comments. This school's mercy is as cold as its rain. Inside the Ashikaga School's dim hall, boys hunch over Confucian scrolls, their fingers smudged with ink, while swords rest at their sides as if wisdom and death are just two sides of the same blade. The master paces his voice-sharp drilling maxims about loyalty and honour, but his cane cracks against a desk when a student falters on a passage knowledge here is as unforgiving as combat. You feel the air thick with dust and tension as a boy recites his eyes flicking to the blade he'll wield at dusk. This is no cosy classroom. It's a medieval think tank where philosophy's a weapon and failure's a bruise. The scroll's parchment smells musty, mingling with the tang of oiled steel, and you see a student's hand tremble caught between the weight of words and the promise of blood. Picture a seminar where flunking means a duel, not a bad grade. The master equates a clear mind with a clean cut, and the boys nod their childhoods buried under dogma and discipline. One misquote, and the cane's your reward. Share your toughest lesson story in the comments. This school's curriculum is carved in steel and shame. A boy bolts from the Ashikaga School's barracks, his heart pounding as he sprints toward the river, dreaming of a stolen hour fishing instead of swinging a sword. The night's heavy with mist, and you hear his sandals slap against the dirt each step, a defiance of the school's iron grip. But the master's shadow looms. His spies, older students, track him through the reeds, their silence more chilling than a shout. This is a medieval jailbreak, but freedom's a fantasy and the stakes are blood. You smell damp earth and river muck the air alive with the hum of pursuit as the boy ducks under branches, his breath ragged. He's no warrior yet, just a kid chasing a spark of joy, but the school doesn't forgive truants. Picture a game of tag where losing means a lashing or worse. A twig snaps and he freezes, the river's glint his only hope, but a hand grabs his shoulder, yanking him back to fate. The school's walls close in its lessons, etched in fear. One escape too many and he's done. Drop your boldest rebellion tale in the comments. This school's rebels pay in pain. In the Ashikaga School's training hall, the master preaches Zen, his voice a low hum, urging students to find calm in the chaos of combat. But his cane lashes out like lightning when a boy's stance wavers. Your mind is your blade, he intones. Yet the sting of his strikes suggests pain is the true teacher. You stand at the edge, feeling the air crackle with paradox serenity, preached through violence, enlightenment carved in bruises. This is no tranquil monastery. It's a Zen boot camp where inner peace comes with a body count. The hall smells of sweat and polished wood, the floor scuffed from endless drills, and you see a boy wince his arm red from the cane, yet he straightens eyes fixed on some distant truth. Picture a meditation session where distraction earns a welt. The master's calm is eerie, his gaze slicing through the boys like a katana, demanding they master fear before steel. One flinch and you're his next lesson. The school forges warriors from such contradictions, where Zen's a weapon as sharp as any blade. Share your strangest discipline story in the comments. This master's piece cuts deep. The Ashikaga School's courtyard hums with tension as two boys face off in a mock duel, their wooden swords raised, but the master's nod means real blood will spill if they falter. You watch heart pounding as their blades clash, splinters flying, each strike a test where a mistake could scar or kill. A boy grunts, his arm grazed red, and the crowd of students holds its breath, knowing the line between practice and punishment is razor thin. This isn't a game. It's a medieval fight club where lessons are written in pain. The air smells of dust and fear, the ground scarred from countless bouts, and you feel the weight of every swing, the boy's eyes burning with dread and defiance. Picture a sparring match where the coach wants you broken. The master calls a halt, but not before a boy staggers, blood trickling from his brow, his pride more wounded than his flesh. The school thrives on these trials, forging killers from kids who learn to fear failure more than death. One wrong move and you're the lesson. Drop your fiercest fight story in the comments. This school's duels don't play pretend. Under the Ashikaga School's moonlit eaves, a handful of boys gather in secret, their whispers sharp as they roll dice on a stolen mat, gambling rice and trinkets, in defiance of the master's iron rule. You catch the faint clink of clay pieces, each bet a rebellion against the school's crushing discipline, but the air hums with dread. One caught move means a lashing or worse. A boy's laugh too loud cuts the night, and they freeze eyes darting to the barracks shadows where the master's spies lurk. This is medieval detention, dodged for a taste of freedom, but the stakes are brutal. The ground's cold, damp with dew, and you smell straw and sweat, the tension thick as the boys' hushed curses when a roll goes bad. Picture a clandestine poker game where losing means a cane's sting. The dice gleam faintly and a boy pockets a win, his grin fierce, until a floorboard creaks nearby and they scatter like roaches. The school's grip tightens even in darkness, forging obedience through fear. One wrong throw and they're caught. Share your boldest, rule-breaking tale in the comments. This school's rebels play with fire. Dawn breaks over the Ashikaga school, its light glinting on blades as boys, barely men, march to their final drills, their faces hardened by years of blood and dogma. You stand at the courtyard's edge, watching a student, once a trembling child, now swing his sword with lethal grace, his childhood forged into a weapon. The air's crisp smelling of dew and oiled steel, and the ground bears scars of countless lessons, spilled blood-broken wills. This isn't graduation. It's a medieval crucible spitting out killers, their humanity a faint echo. The master nods his eyes cold as a boy recites a Zen koan before slicing a straw dummy its fall, a grim mirror of what awaits beyond these walls. Picture a coming of age where the prize is a body count. The school's legacy is these warriors moulded from pain, defiance, burned away by discipline. Yet in their eyes, a flicker fear, maybe regret, betrays the cost. They march into the world, blades sharp, souls dulled. Share your tale of transformation in the comments. This school's dawn buries boys to birth samurai. You step into the Kanazawa library where shadows cling to wooden beams, and the air smells of old cedar and ink heavy with the weight of secrets. Rows of locked chests line the walls, each one guarding scrolls and tomes treated like relics, their iron clasps gleaming faintly in the lamplight. A monk brushes past his robe, whispering, and you hear a chest's lock creak, as if it resents its own silence. This isn't a library, it's a medieval vault for knowledge too sacred or dangerous to touch. The floor creaks underfoot and you feel the gaze of unseen eyes. The chest's contents rumoured to hold war strategies, Buddhist sutras, or something darker. Picture a Lovecraftian arc where every book might bite. Locals swear some chests rattle at night unopened, and you catch a faint hum like a breath trapped in wood. The monks guard these treasures with a zeal that borders on fear, their keys worn like talismans. One wrong touch, and you're cursed, or so they say. Share your creepiest library tale in the comments. This place locks more than just books away. A monk hunches over a low table in the Kanazawa library, his brush trembling as he copies a sutra, each stroke a prayer under the flicker of a dying lamp. His eyes are bloodshot, his hands stained with ink that seeps like blood, and you smell the sharp tang of it, mingling with the musty air of ancient parchment. He's been at this for hours, maybe days, the weight of sacred words crushing him. Collapses common pages ruined by a monk's exhausted slump. This isn't scholarship, it's medieval carpal tunnel, with enlightenment as the only paycheck. The library's silence is oppressive, broken only by the scratch of his brush, and you notice his fingers twitch, as if the text fights back. Whispers say some monks dream of the words they copy, waking with screams. Picture a scribe's desk as a battlefield where ink's the enemy, the floor's littered with stray paper, and you feel the chill of a room that hoards secrets. One slip and he's defiled a holy text. Share your grueling task story in the comments. This library's monks carry more than just words. Deep in the Kanazawa library, a single tome rests in a chained chest, its leather cover cracked like old skin, rumoured to curse readers with visions or sleepless nights. You stand frozen as a monk hesitates to touch it, his fingers hovering the air thick with dust and dread. Locals whisper it holds forbidden war tactics or spells, and those who read it see blood-soaked fields in their dreams. Medieval haunted kindle anyone. The library's lamplight flickers, casting shadows that seem to writhe across the book's surface, and you smell mildew and something sharper like fear itself. The monk mutters a prayer, his voice barely a thread, as if the tome might hear. Picture a book that reads you back its pages heavy with malice. Some say it was written by a mad warrior monk, its ink mixed with ash from burned shrines. The chest's chain clinks unbidden, and you step back, heart racing, the silence now await. This library guards knowledge, but this book feels like a trap. One page and you're lost. Share your spookiest book tale in the comments. This tome's no bedtime story. The Kanazawa Library at midnight is a tomb of shadows, where locals swear the books whisper their pages, rustling like breaths in the dark. You linger, the only soul left as a faint creak echoes from the stacks, and you smell cold stone and fading incense, the air alive with unseen eyes. A scroll on a nearby shelf trembles its edge. Curling as if turned by an invisible hand, folklore claims spirits of scribes haunt these halls, guarding or cursing their work. This isn't a library. It's a medieval seance waiting to go wrong. You hear a soft hum like a voice half-formed, and your skin prickles the floor, creaking underfoot as you edge toward the door. Picture a ghost story where the ghosts are the books themselves, jealous of their secrets. Monks avoid this hour, whispering of tomes that open unbidden, their words glowing faintly. The silence grows heavier, and you swear a page flips sharp as a gasp. One step too close, and the whispers might name you. Share your creepiest nighttime scare in the comments. This library's darkness listens. A samurai kneels in the Kanazawa Library's dim alcove, his katana resting beside him. As he pores over a scroll of war tactics, its faded ink detailing bloodshed with cold precision. You watch the air heavy with dust and the faint tang of steel as his fingers trace the text, his face taut with unease. Rumours of the library's haunted tomes gnaw at even his warrior's heart. The lamplight flickers, casting his shadow like a spectre across the wall, and you hear a distant creak as if the chests themselves resent his presence. This isn't a study session. It's a medieval standoff between a killer and the unknown. The floor's worn smooth by centuries of monks, and you feel the library's chill, its silence pressing like a blade. Picture a hardened soldier spooked by a book, his courage fraying in the dark. Whispers say some texts here, shift their words under moonlight, and the samurai's grip tightens on his sword's hilt, eyes darting. He's trained to face men, not ghosts. One strange word and his nerve could snap. Share your tensest moment of doubt in the comments. This library tests even the brave. The Kanazawa Library lies still, its silence a tomb for knowledge and fear, where every scroll and chest holds a story of devotion, dread, or something older. You stand alone, the air cold with the scent of ink and ancient wood, and feel the weight of centuries monks who bled for their words, samurai who sought power, all caught in this crypt of secrets. The stacks loom their shadows, swallowing the last flicker of your lamp, and you hear nothing yet. Everything. A page's rustle, a lock's sigh, the library breathing. This isn't a place. It's a presence. A medieval archive that guards its truths with a jealous hush. The floor creaks, and you imagine the cursed tomes, the haunted scribes, the whispers that never fade. Picture a silence loud enough to drown you, its grip tighter than any ghost's. The library's legacy is this humanity's hunger for wisdom, twisted by superstition, forever trapped in these walls. You turn to leave, but the silence holds you a final warning. Step out, and it still lingers a chill no light can warm. Share what haunts you most in the comments. This library's silence never forgets. Picture yourself in a dimly lit tavern, the air thick with the scent of stale ale and smoky hearth. It's the Middle Ages, and no, it's not the Hollywood version, with gallant knights and gleaming castles. This is the real deal, mud-caked boots, flea-ridden cloaks, and a world where the local entertainment might be a bard butchering a lute, or a neighbour dancing till he drops, possibly from something nastier than exhaustion. Welcome to the foggy, fragrant world of medieval intoxication, where regular gritty, stubborn people, found ways to escape the grind of their days. They didn't have your streaming apps or espresso shots, but they had herbs' roots, and a reckless curiosity that sometimes turned a bad idea into a wild night. So dim the lights, maybe crack a window for that soft evening breeze, and let's dive into a time when Let's See What This Does was both a plan and a prayer. You might imagine the Middle Ages as a grim slog of plagues, prayers and potatoes, but beneath the woolen tunics and endless winters, folks were experimenting. Not with test tubes, mind you, but with whatever grew in the garden or festered in the pantry. A peasant bone-tired from ploughing fields might eyeball a gnarled root and think, what if I boil this with some ale? A monk bored out of his skull in a chilly scriptorium might wonder if that weird mushroom could spice up his vespers. Life was tough, no electricity, no painkillers, and the closest thing to a movie night was watching a goose chaser drunk through the village square. So when someone whispered about a plant that could make you forget the tax collector for a few hours, you'd probably give it a chew. And trust me, Things got weird, sometimes poetic, sometimes catastrophic, but always human. Hit that like button if you're ready for the ride and drop a comment with where you're tuning in from. Let's see how far this medieval haze drifts tonight. Now that you're settled in, let's peel back the layers of this medieval world where getting a buzz wasn't just a Friday night whim, it was woven into the very fabric of life. Forget the modern idea of partying. In the Middle Ages, mind-altering substances weren't about sneaking a joint behind the barn. They were medicine ritual and sometimes just a bad batch of bread that sent the whole village into a spin. Picture yourself as a medieval villager, your knees creaking like a rusty gate. Your only doctor, a barber with a dull knife. A healer hands you a bitter tea that smells like regret, promising it'll ease your toothache. You drink it, and suddenly the room's spinning and you're arguing with a stool you swear is your cousin. That's the medieval high equal parts cure prayer and chaos. These substances weren't fringe, they were mainstream, tucked into every corner of society. Physicians prescribed them, monks grew them in cloistered gardens, and midwives swore by them to dull the screams of childbirth. Even the church, ever suspicious of anything too fun, couldn't deny their power. A visionary state might get you saint status if you played it right, but call it getting lit and you'd be dodging pitchforks. The line between divine inspiration and delirium was razor thin, and it depended on who was watching. Peasants didn't have the luxury of labels, they used what worked, whether it was a tankard of herb-laced ale to numb the cold, or a salve that made them dream of flying. And when mouldy rye turned your morning porridge into a ticket to Wonderland, you didn't complain. You just hoped the visions were kind. This was a world where survival demanded creativity, and every sip or sniff was a roll of the dice. Stay with me next, we'll dig into the plants that made it all happen. Imagine you're hunched over a flickering fire in a medieval hut, the wind howling outside like a pack of hungry wolves. Your tooth's throbbing, worse than a blacksmith's hammer, and the local healer, a wiry woman with eyes like a hawk, hands you a steaming cup of something that smells like damp earth and bad decisions. Henbane, she mutters. It'll quiet the pain. You take a sip, and for a moment the world softens, your aches fading into a warm haze. But then your mouth goes dry as a desert, the walls start whispering, and you're pretty sure the cat just asked you to dance. Welcome to Henbane, the Middle Ages answer to spin the wheel and see what happens. This plant was no casual herb. It was a gamble, a roll of nature's dice that could soothe your soul or send you sprinting through the woods shouting at trees. Henbane, or Hyoscyamus niger, to the scholarly types, was a medieval multi-tool used by everyone from monks to midwives. In small doses it was a godsend, a sedative for sleepless nights, a painkiller for childbirth, or a balm for that toothache that made you curse the saints. But cross the line into a heftier dose and you're in for a wild ride, hallucinations, delirium, and maybe a heartfelt chat with a turnip you're convinced is your long-lost aunt. Its active compounds, scopolamine and hyoscyamin, scrambled your brain's wiring, turning reality into a fever dream of distorted shapes and spontaneous jigs. Smoked, brewed, or slathered on as a greasy salve, henbane was a staple in the healer's kit, though the church raised an eyebrow at anything that made you see angels without their approval. Legal. Sure, but suspicious visions were meant to come from prayer, not plants. Still, for a peasant with nothing but grit and a sore-back henbane, was a risky but tempting escape. If you're enjoying this herbal haze, drop a comment with what time it is where you are. Let's see who's up for the night shift. Step into a medieval forest at dusk, the air heavy with the scent of moss and mystery. You're a herbalist cloak damp from the evening mist, eyeing a patch of earth where a mandrake root lies buried. It's no ordinary plant, its gnarled human-shaped form has a reputation that could make a knight quiver. Legend says it screams when you yank it from the ground, a wail so piercing it could drop you dead. So you tie a rope to it, loop the other end around a scruffy dog and whistle from a safe distance. The dog tugs the root, pops free, and you wince, half expecting the apocalypse. Nothing happens, the dog's fine, but your heart's pounding like a war drum. That's mandrake, the Middle Ages' most theatrical herb, equal parts medicine, magic, and madness. Mandrake, or Mandragora officinarum, was the rock star of medieval botany steeped in folklore and fear. Its eerie humanoid roots were believed to hold potent powers, a sedative for surgeries, an aphrodisiac for lonely hearts, or a ticket to prophetic dreams if you boiled it in wine. Inhale its fumes and you might see visions of glory or wake up in a ditch muttering about goats. Herbalists swore by its ability to dull pain, but overdose, and you'd be vomiting, fainting, or convincing your neighbours the soup was possessed. Harvesting was a ritual in itself, with tales of dogs sacrificed to its deadly cry, though most just dug it up and hoped for the best. The church wasn't thrilled anything that sparked visions without a priest's blessing smelled like witchcraft. Yet monks scribbled mandrake recipes in their herbals detailing doses with a precision that suggests someone had a very interesting night. For the desperate or daring mandrake was a gamble worth taking a route that promised miracles and delivered chaos. Stick around next, we'll uncover more of nature's wild tricks. Picture yourself at a medieval feast, the hall alive with the clatter of goblets and the flicker of torchlight. You're a noblewoman, your linen gown heavy with embroidery, but all eyes are on your face, or rather your eyes. They're wide, dark, almost otherworldly, thanks to a tiny drop of belladonna slipped into them before you left your chamber. The name means beautiful lady, and it's no lie those dilated pupils make you look like a saint or a sorceress mysterious enough to turn heads. But as the room spins slightly and the candlelight stabs at your vision, you're reminded that beauty comes at a cost. Belladonna or deadly nightshade is as treacherous as it is alluring a plant that could make you a vision, or send you screaming into a hallucination where the walls recite Latin. Belladonna, known to the learned as a troppa belladonna, was the medieval world's double-edged sword. A pinch in your eyes for that captivating gaze, a dose in a potion to dull the agony of a broken bone or a reckless gulp that might have you chasing phantom saints through the village, its compounds atropine and scopolamine toyed with your nervous system, blurring the line between medicine and madness. Physicians used it sparingly to ease pain or induce a death-like sleep for surgeries, but one wrong move and you'd be seeing devils in your stew or waking up with no memory of why you're holding a spoon. Nobles and apothecaries alike handled it with care or not, depending on how bad the plague was that week. The church cast a wary eye. Anything that made you see visions without a prayer was trouble. Yet belladonna's allure was undeniable, a poison that promised beauty and relief delivered with a smirk and a warning. If you're hooked on this herbal chaos, drop a comment with where you're tuning in. Let's see who's braving the night with us. Step into a medieval apothecary's den where the air hums with the scent of crushed herbs and something faintly sinister. Jars line the shelves filled with roots and resins, but your gaze lands on a greasy pot of salve, its surface shimmering under the candlelight. This is no ordinary ointment. It's a flying ointment, a witch's brew of henbane, mandrake and belladonna mixed with pig fat and whispered charms. Smear it on your skin, maybe somewhere the sun doesn't shine, and you're promised a ride through the night sky soaring with spirits or demons, depending on who's telling the tale. But as the room tilts and your heart races, you might wonder if you're flying or just losing your grip on reality. In the Middle Ages, these concoctions were more than folklore, they were a risky ticket to transcendence or trouble. These ointments and potions weren't for casual thrills. They were tied to rituals, healing, and the kind of spiritual quest that made priests nervous. Applied to sensitive skin, yes, those delicate spots-flying ointments sent their potent herbs straight to your bloodstream, sparking visions of soaring over villages or feasting with shadowy figures. Potions, meanwhile, were gulped down in wine or broth like poppy-laced mead that could numb a wound or land you in a divine chat with a talking cloud. Apothecaries and wise women crafted these with care, blending fact with faith, but a sloppy dose could leave you babbling about lizards or waking up in a haystack with no shoes. The church called it witchcraft, but for many it was just medicine with a side of mystery. These were the tools of the desperate, the devout, or the downright curious, offering a glimpse of the beyond if you could survive the trip. Stay with me. Next we'll cross continents to explore a different kind of high. Transport yourself to a bustling market in 9th century Baghdad, where the air hums with the chatter of merchants and the scent of saffron and honey. Amid the stalls, a Sufi mystic slips you a sticky spiced sweet, his eyes twinkling with secrets. Hashish, he whispers, promising it'll quiet your mind and open your soul to the divine. Unlike the bitter brews of medieval Europe, this cannabis resin treat tastes like a dessert you'd fight a camel for. In the Islamic Golden Age, hashish wasn't just a sneaky thrill, it was a tool for poets, healers and seekers chasing something bigger than themselves. While Europe was rubbing toxic salves and praying for mercy scholars, here we're jotting down its effects with the precision of a mathematician charting the stars. Hashish derived from cannabis resin was a star in Persia, Egypt, and the Levant often mixed with honey or spices to make it go down smooth. For Sufis, the mystics of Islam, it was a key to spiritual ecstasy, melting the ego and sparking long, soulful stares at the cosmos, or at least the nearest wall. Physicians prescribed it to calm nerves or ease pain, while poets spun verses about its dreamy haze, sounding like they'd just survived a bad breakup with the universe. But not everyone was a fan. Rulers tried to ban it, grumbling about lazy workers or giggling prayer sessions, though their crackdowns had about as much success as herding cats. Myths swirled too, like the hashish-fueled assassins, a tale more legend than ledger. For most, hashish was just part of life, a sweet escape from camel traffic or existential dread. If you're vibing with this drop, a comment with what time it's ticking where you are. Let's see who's riding this historical wave tonight. Step into a medieval chapel, the stone walls echoing with solemn chants, and the air thick with a swirling cloud of incense like God's own fog machine. The scent of frankincense and myrrh wraps around you heavy and sweet, masking the whiff of unwashed wool and yesterday's fish stew. It's not just about setting the mood. Those curling wisps of smoke were believed to carry prayers, skyward, purify the space, and maybe nudge you closer to the divine. But here's the twist that dreamy haze might have done more than soothe your soul. In the Middle Ages, incense wasn't just spiritual window dressing. It had a subtle kick, a whisper of psychoactive magic, that could make a 5-hour sermon feel like a gentle drift into eternity. Frankincense and myrrh, hauled from the deserts of Arabia and East Africa, were the rock stars of sacred smoke. Burned in churches, mosques and temples, they released compounds like incensyl acetate, which modern science says can tickle your brain's limbic system, calming nerves and softening reality's edges. In stuffy medieval chapels where fasting monks and weary villagers sat shoulder to shoulder, that smoky air could spark a mild buzz, nothing wild, just enough to make the Gregorian chant feel like a cosmic lullaby. Visions during prayers. Maybe divine, maybe just resin fumes. Clerics swore it lifted the soul. Skeptics might say it just made boredom bearable. Either way, incense was a universal vibe crossing faiths and borders from Christian altars to pagan groves. It was the medieval equivalent of a scented candle and lo-fi beats, only with more Latin and a hint of transcendence. Stick around next, we'll raise a tankard to the liquid courage of the age. Imagine stumbling into a medieval village at dusk, the air sharp with the tang of wood smoke and the faint sweetness of fermenting barley. You duck into a tavern where the clink of tankards and the roar of laughter drown out the creak of your aching joints. Water's a gamble here. Streams are often the local latrine for cows, and worse, so you reach for a mug of small beer brewed by someone's aunt, who measures with a squint and a prayer. It's weak, barely alcoholic, but it's safer than the river and gives you a gentle buzz like a hug from a slightly tipsy friend. In the Middle Ages, alcohol wasn't just a drink. It was survival, a social glue, and sometimes the only thing keeping you sane when your neighbour's chicken starts judging your life choices. From peasants to monks, everyone drank, kids included. Small beer was the Gatorade of the era, sipped all day to stay hydrated without risking dysentery. But don't picture a sober scene. Wealthier folks chase stronger ales, honeyed mead or wine spiked with herbs for that extra kick. Monasteries turned brewing into a holy art, with monks perfecting recipes like they were saving souls one pint at a time. Feeling blue spiced wine, tooth extraction, a hefty gulp of ale, sharing gossip in a crowded-in mead and maybe a dance move nobody asked for. Taverns were therapy hubs where you'd drown your sorrows, celebrate a harvest, or invent a jig that'd get you banned from the village. Alcohol was more than a beverage. It was medicine merriment and a way to forget the draughty hovel you called home. If you're toasting this tale, drop a comment with where you're sipping from tonight. Let's raise a glass across time. Picture yourself at a medieval baker's table, the air thick with the dusty scent of rye flour. You grab a warm loaf, not knowing it's laced with ergot, a sneaky fungus that looks like a harmless black kernel, but hits like a curse from a fairy tale. One bite, and suddenly your hands feel like they're crawling with spiders, the room spins, and you're laughing or screaming at a shadow you swear is your grandma. Or maybe you're in a mountain village near the Black Sea, spreading honey on your bread, unaware that the bees got frisky with toxic rhododendron flowers. That's mad honey, and it's about to turn your breakfast into a slow-motion opera starring your own eyebrows. In the Middle Ages, these accidental highs weren't choices, they were nature's prank on the hungry and the hopeful. Ergot, a parasite on rye, was the medieval world's uninvited party guest, sparking convulsions, hallucinations, and even dancing plagues, where entire towns jigged until they dropped. It was like LSD before anyone knew what chemistry was, baked right into your daily bread because hunger didn't care about quality control. Mad honey, meanwhile, was a rare treat from Anatolia's hills, where bees turned nectar into a dizzying potion. A dab could ease a headache. A spoonful and you're clutching a potato convinced it's your uncle. Armies even used it as a weapon, leaving jars for invaders to find, only to watch them collapse in a giggling heap. Both were wild cards that got a village-wide fever dream mad honey and mystics gamble. They showed how even breakfast could be a roll of the dice in a world where survival was never guaranteed. That's the end of our medieval haze. Next we'll sail into the ancient seas. Drop a comment with what time it is where you are. Let's see who's still awake for the journey. Feel the Mediterranean breeze whip across your face, the wooden deck creaking underfoot as waves slap the hull. You're not just on a ship, you're riding the lifeblood of ancient empires where the sea was no mere backdrop, but the stage for history's grandest dramas. This isn't about dusty trails or trudging legions. It's about the shimmering expanse that carried grain from Egypt, gold from Carthage, and whispers of war from Athens to Rome. To command the seas was to clutch the world's pulse, steering trade power and survival itself. So dim, the lights let a fan's hum mimic the ocean's sigh and sail with me into a time when empires rose and fell with the tide. The Mediterranean, the Middle Sea, was a liquid crossroads stitching together Europe, Africa and Asia. It ferried Phoenician merchants, Roman soldiers and Egyptian priests, linking cultures in a web of commerce and conquest. Control it, and you could starve a rival city, flood their markets with your goods, or land an army on their doorstep before they could blink. Athens leaned on its fleet to secure grain routes and squeeze tribute from allies. Carthage turned the sea into a glittering trade highway, their ships heavy with Spanish silver and Sicilian wine. Egypt's Nile-fed vessels guarded incense trails to distant punt. Harbours were the era's power hubs, buzzing with shipwrights and dealmakers, while navies were the muscle that kept it all flowing. A single storm or a bold admiral could flip the board, making the sea both a treasure and a trap. If you're hooked, drop a comment with where you're anchored at 4:47 p.m. plus 07 this Saturday, June 23rd, 2025. Let's see who's sailing this ancient current. Now squeeze onto a trireme's narrow deck, packed tight with rowers, whose grunts match the drum's relentless beat. You're not on some leisurely cruise. This is a trireme, the ancient world's sleekest war machine, skimming the waves like a predator stalking prey. The Athenians made it their own, turning these lean ships into the fists of their sea empire. With 3 tiers of oars flashing like a centipede's legs, a trireme could hit 9 knots fast enough to chase down a merchant or smash an enemy's hull to kindling. It's less a ship, more a living weapon powered by sweat and strategy. Settle in, let a fan's hum echo the sea's rhythm, and let's row into the heart of ancient naval might. A trireme was a marvel, 120 feet of cedar, just 18 feet wide, built to slice through water with barely a ripple. Its 3 rows of oars, manned by citizen rowers, not chained captives, moved like a single heartbeat, driving it into battle with lethal grace. The star was the ram, a bronze-sheathed prow that could gut an enemy ship if you hit just right. Timing was everything. Misjudge the angle and you'd be stuck or capsized. Athenian captains honed tricks like the diekplus darting through enemy lines to strike from behind. A handful of marines' hoplites with spears and nerve clung to the deck, ready to board or fend off attackers. No heavy armour, no bulk. The trireme's power was speed and precision, a dancer in a world of brutes. It wasn't just Athens' navy, it was their democracy afloat, rowed by commoners who turned grit into glory. Stick with me. Next we'll dive into the bloody dance of battle. Drop a comment with where you're at, let's see who's rowing at this hour. Grip the rail of a trireme, the sea heaving beneath you, the air thick with the tang of salt and the shouts of rowers straining as one. You're in the chaos of an ancient naval battle, where the Mediterranean sun glints off bronze rams and splintered oars. This isn't a brawl, it's a deadly chess match played at full sprint with everything on the line. Your mission: sink the enemy's ship with a well-aimed ram or swarm their deck, and fight like your life depends on it, because it does. The Athenians were the masters of this brutal dance, weaving their triremes through enemy lines, with a finesse that turned tides and toppled empires. Dim the lights, let a fan's hum mimic the wave's pulse, and let's plunge into the heart of ancient naval warfare's tactics. Ramming was the trireme's killer move, a precision strike to puncture an enemy's hull below the waterline. Get it right, and their ship's sinking in minutes. Get it wrong, and you're either glancing off or stuck a sitting duck for counterattack. Athenian captains wielded manoeuvres like the deckplus slipping through gaps to ram vulnerable flanks, or the periplus circling to hit from behind. Both demanded rowers who could pivot faster than a politician's promise. But when rams missed or oars tangled, boarding turned the sea into a butcher's yard. Marines' hoplites with spears and raw nerve leaped onto enemy decks, slashing in a frenzy of close-quarters combat. Archers peppered the chaos with arrows picking off anyone dumb enough to stand tall. The Romans later tilted the scales with the corvus a spiked plank that locked ships together, letting their legions turn naval fights into land-style bloodbaths. Every clash was a high-stakes gamble where one misstep sent you to the deep. If you're hooked on this carnage, drop a comment with where you're at.